start by welcoming you all to the I-79 Technology Park and to the Robert H. Mollahan Research Center. This is the home of several NOAA activities. They have one of their most advanced supercomputing center here. They have their two most important ground stations, satellite ground station projects here, namely the GOES-R and the JPSS project. So it's really put Fairmont and North Central West Virginia on the map, and really excited about that. The park is also home, of course, to the NASA IBD operations. It's home to several FBI programs, and of course it's also the regional headquarters operation of First Energy's Mon Power facility. So it's really kind of an exciting place to be if you're in the technology sector, and I'm thrilled every day to be able to come here to work and be a part of it. And I think as has been mentioned already, North Central West Virginia is indeed a bright spot in the state. And I think that the kind of leadership that's been demonstrated by the three chambers to organize an event like the one we're having today is an example of the things that are unique about our region that has made us that bright spot. So I would like you all to join me in congratulating the three chambers for making such an event possible. Now, it is worth noting that our region is a bright spot, and that's very important. And I think it's even more important than most people realize, because our state is really going through some challenges. Just in the last 6 months to a year, we've had a couple of designations that certainly I find alarming, and I think everybody else does too. One, of course, is that we have the distinction of having the worst workforce participation rate, pretty much in the history of that metric being collected. We were the only state to have a negative population growth between 2010 and 2014, and unfortunately that list goes on. So while what we're doing is a bright spot, I would hope that everybody here would leave this event and continue on with a sense of urgency that we have to be even more aggressive, because what we're working on here not only is a great thing, but could be a major indicator of the future health of the West Virginia economy, and we have to do more. And the kind of things that you're going to hear about today from the various panelists are exactly the kind of industries that, if you look at any economic study from any broad-based economic group, they talk about the future economy will be based in the knowledge sector, that every 2 out of 3 jobs are likely to be knowledge sector jobs. And that's the kind of things that we're working on in this region, and you're going to hear about today. We got to do more. We got to focus on what the investments need to be to not only perpetuate that and grow it, but to preserve what we've got. And I would love it if everybody who left today, like I said earlier, with a sense of urgency to reach out to the stakeholders and the decision makers and say, we've got to do more. So, and again, I want to thank the three chambers for their forward thinking to bring an event like this together so that we can focus on what we need to focus on urgently. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the panelists today. The first panelist at the end of the table, Mr. Glenn Coben. Glenn is the Director of Federal Civilian Programs and KeyLogic's Performance Management Strategic Business Unit. He joined KeyLogic in 2003 and has more than 30 years of technology experience and over 20 years of project management experience. Next, we have Mr. Steve Morse. Steve, on March 5th, 2014, was appointed by Director James Comey as the Assistant Director of the Criminal Justice Information Services Division, or CJIS, in Clarksburg. Mr. Morris most recently served as Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Houston Division. Mr. Morris had previously served as Deputy Assistant Director in the Criminal Justice Information Services Division from 2008 to 2011. Next, we have Mr. Norman Gunderson. Norm is the Vice President and General Manager of Global Science and Technology, their West Virginia division. His responsibilities include the management of the daily operations of the division and the staff working here in Fairmont, as well as various other locations around the state. Mr. Gunderson has been supporting the NASA, NOAA, and FAA communities in various capacities since 1974. Next, we have Mr. Chip Van Ellsworth. Chip is the General Manager for Frontier Communications, North Central West Virginia region. His responsibilities include workload management, network reliability, marketing, public relations, business development, and community engagement. So please welcome our panelists today. So, gentlemen, we have a few questions already that we would like to pose to the panel, and they will we'll answer them as we go along, and we'll try to get through as many of the questions as we can. The first question for the panelists, and we'll start with Glenn today, is how does your industry or business sector benefit from being located in North Central West Virginia?
Thanks, Jim. First of all, I'm an old guy, and with at least this old guy, you get stories. So bear with me if I tell stories. Like a lot of people, I grew up here, moved away to find a job, and came back. And the draw of this place, we know a lot of people that talk about having a sense of family, a sense of community, but there's a sense of place in West Virginia, in North Central West Virginia, that I just don't see a lot in other places. There's a desire, if you're from here, to come back here. And we have a great opportunity to bring people that have come from here back here. We've had great success in bringing people who are not from here into this area who want to stay here. I use an example, again, I'll tell stories, but we have some very good young talent coming from academia here that have come into the NASA IBNV facility and are just performing extremely well. So, yeah, as a business, having those opportunities to bring in young talent combined with us older SMEs, I guess, subject matter experts, gives us a good opportunity. And over the years that I've been back here, the increase in infrastructure in the area, a lot of what the High-Tech Foundation has done with bringing these facilities in here. We now have the availability of the bandwidth that we didn't have in the past. We have, again, access to academia, and for us as a government contractor, access to government agencies. Certainly FBI, CGIS, NASA, NETL, we have NIOSH, we have in other areas of West Virginia, we have the IRS and Bureau of Public Debt. So that combined with the fact that we are easily accessible. 30 years ago, that was not the case, but today, we can be in DC by car in 3 hours or by air in less than an hour. We can be in Pittsburgh in less than an hour, and access to large centers of population, but having both homegrown and talent brought in here has just allowed us to excel. One of the stories I'll tell is Keylogic has been in business since 1999. The first 6 years of our company, we had no business in West Virginia. The owner of the company, John Hammock, is a native West Virginian, started the company here, wanted to be here, but all of our work was in DC. And that is changing. We see opportunities now to be here. We would be here no matter what, but as we've seen the infrastructure grow and the availability to reach out, this sense of community to, I'll use a term, and Norm's going to talk about this probably, but I will use a term that we've talked about. In this area, we know that we have what we've coined as coopetition. We will cooperate with businesses today and possibly compete against them tomorrow, but that's okay. It's the goal of delivering high quality service to our customers that really drives us, and this community has helped with that.
Steve?
Sure. So I'll talk about this from two perspectives, kind of a personal perspective and a professional perspective. First of all, from a personal standpoint, much like Glenn had mentioned, there's something about West Virginia, I think, that just kind of draws you in. I've, in my almost 27 years with the FBI, I've moved around this country from Washington, D.C. to Hawaii and places in between. I think logged about 13 transfers or moves in those 27 years or 26 plus years. And I've drugged 3 kids around in the process of those moves. And I used to find myself, I've done a couple tours in Texas, and I used to tell stories at chamber meetings and different things in Texas about, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got there as soon as I could, kind of thing. And if you can imagine in Texas, that resonates pretty well. And I even took it one step further. And heck, my 3 kids are named Austin, Tyler, and Houston. So, I feel like, I think I am pretty committed to Texas. But over those years, I look back on it, and I've been affiliated with the CJIS division of the FBI here for nearly 10 years now. This is my 3rd tour back to West Virginia, back to this facility. And and that is by choice. I politicked really hard to get those positions here because, like Lynn mentioned, there's just something about this place that just keeps drawing you back. And even though I love Texas and I'm dear and loyal to Texas, West Virginia is my home. And I was born and raised in South Carolina. I came to West Virginia through my first assignment here 10 years ago. And it's just something about this place that I've fallen in love with. Over the years, my kids have grown. My youngest is a senior in high school, wants to go to school in this area. My 2 oldest have gone on to do other things and go to school and finish, and they have found their way here. So after all these years, I still have 3 kids that still live at home, and they've adopted the same home that I have. So I think that speaks volumes to this area, the quality of life, the personal feel that you get here. So I think that's one of the things that resonates with folks. But on a professional level, what I find here, working with the FBI particularly, is I've never worked in a place where the work ethic is so strong. I think that was something that Senator Byrd picked up on 20 some odd years ago, and deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that vision. But we've been able to leverage that work ethic and leverage the folks of the great state of West Virginia. And again, it's just that strong sense of community, I think, that keeps people. There's a cohesiveness here that I can say that, like I said, in my 20 some odd years of traveling this country, there's something about this place that just makes you want to be a part of. And I think that is something that folks identify with. And like I said, the one thing that really, really sticks out in my mind is, even though the FBI has been at this for 20 plus years now here in West Virginia, it still feels like there's a tremendous amount of untapped resources here. There's some uncharted waters that I think this group and what we're doing today is trying to navigate. And to be a part of that and to know that you're part of, in some way, making history, it's just a really cool feeling for me, and I know it's a great thing to be a part of from the FBI standpoint and from my own personal standpoint.
Thanks, Steve. Norman?
My perspective on this question is absolutely as a person that moved here from someplace else. And anybody that knows me in a place like in a meeting like this, if you've talked to me, you've probably heard this over and over again. You probably want to say, Norm, swallow a cork, But I came from the city, okay? To make a long story short, I was brought up in New York, and then I spent, a long time, 35 years in the Washington, D.C. area. And after 60 years, I moved to a place called Fairmont, West Virginia. Now, if you don't want to think that that's a culture shock, then I encourage you to move there for a while and then come back. But I started recognizing the differences the day I got here. I would come to a gathering like this, and I was talking to people that were really my competitors Now, I talk to my competitors in the DC area, but I talk to them a lot different. And there, it's all competition, and they're the enemy, and you're strategizing for your good and against theirs, but not here. I mean, I was talking to people that, I mean, I got helped on more than one occasion by a competitor with no benefit to them, and that actually took me a while to get used to. Now, my headquarters of the company that I work for is in Greenbelt, Maryland, and I go back and I talk to my colleagues there about how it is to do business here. I think they think I'm lying. But this happens all the time. So this gathering today of joining 3 counties, I guess I kind of just think it's kind of like this is kind of becoming ordinary to me, and it's a change. I want to talk about a little bit about why a company like ours is attractive to a place like this. Well, part of it's just what I've been saying, but the West Virginia High Tech Consortium, this whole thing, this is a drawing card. When you drive up 79 from the south, especially, I mean, it's an impressive thing. I mean, it just cries technology. Now, coming from the north, you don't really see anything until you get here, but coming from the south, it's really a drawing card. Jim was talking before about the systems that have moved here. Well, you know, our company benefits from that indirectly, I guess. But those dishes that you see up on the hill that are collecting meteorological data from both GOES-R and JPSS, you know, our company builds a system that basically collects that data and makes it available to the users. Would we be here without the consortium? Well, maybe, but it sure is easier to have it here. Just the talent pool that's here. When I first came here, I would tell people I'm moving to West Virginia, and they would ask me if I was crazy. And I've learned a lot about this since I've been here. I've been here for 4 years, by the way. That's long enough to be here. I keep telling everybody that I've become a West Virginian, and they are very quick to point out that I have a long way to go. And I'm a city boy at heart, but I'm not. But I was misplaced for 60 years. When we are recruiting talent, I mean, we're hiring like any company. As we grow, we hire people, and the thought is there's no talent here. Well, it's not true. It really isn't. There's talent here. It's a very reasonable talent pool. We have universities here producing young talent, and there are people with experience too. There are positions that we need to fill that are very senior positions. And like Glenn was saying before, one of the best things we have is we recruit the guy that was educated here, grew up here, educated here, and then moved away because there was no jobs. Well, now we have a job, and they are wanting to come back here. I think there's something in the blood. Learned a lot about personalities. Some people are city people, and some people are not city people. I think my blood is I'm not a city person. I was here a year, and people that I work with said, "Okay, you've been here a year. You're coming back now." And I said, "No, I'm not coming back. I'm a West Virginian." And they look at me in horror, and they open their mouth and they say, I cannot believe you are," this is a direct quote, "so married to West Virginia." And I took a breath and I thought about that for a moment, and I said, that's not true. I don't really feel like I'm married to West Virginia so much, but I definitely am divorced from the city. Okay? I told somebody this story this morning, so I'm sorry you're going to hear this again, but I lived 10 miles away from work when I lived in Maryland. And in the normal traffic, it took me about 35 to 40 minutes. And it could take a lot longer than that. I went through about 20 lights. Half of them I had to sit through a couple of cycles. But, 10 miles, 40 minutes. I moved to West Virginia. I live about 10 miles away from work now, too. takes me about 11 minutes. No, not about 11 minutes. It takes me 11 minutes. And I have to go through one light. One light. And about half the time, I have to stop at that light, and that really ticks me off. But it is just different living here. I go back to DC a lot because our headquarters is there, and as soon as I get there, I'm on the Beltway, and I'm usually not moving, okay? And that does not sit well with me. But I understand that some people, that's okay, but I'm not one of them. I probably said way too much on that. I yield.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chip Van Allsburg, obviously. To sit here and look among this crowd and see so many friends and contacts that I've known for many, many years, it's kind of humbling. I graduated from Fairmont State in 1995, actually, and I felt a strong need to go somewhere or do something, and I went to Charlotte for 2 weeks and realized that I made a huge mistake and I would never leave the state of West Virginia again. Arch Moore came to my school in my senior year and he said, "You kids, you need to stay in West Virginia." And that always stuck with me. And I never felt quite right, even the 2 weeks that I was down in Charlotte. I was down there one day and got a job, but it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like it was home, so I came back. And I got the itch to move again. I moved to Charleston. I thought the crown jewel of the state of West Virginia. A lot of my family actually originated in northern Kanawha County. I can remember stories of my mom told back in the late 30s and early 40s about my grandma who was redheaded and spoke broken English, and she was from Ireland, and my grandpa was from Germany, great-grandpa. And you think about, how much our society has changed since then. You think about the technological changes, and you're talking about the late 30s, early 40s. The phone company just celebrated its 100th anniversary. There's been dial tone in existence for over 100 years now. That's pretty amazing. And that business has changed a lot. It's changed phenomenally. I mean, we're no longer a phone company. Frontier isn't a phone company. We're a telecommunications company. A lot of businesses, a lot of residences rely on phone, internet to conduct their daily lives. I mean, 911 relies on us. But we've made a lot of investments in the system in the past 5 years since the acquisition in 2010. We built a brand new network that will sustain just about any kind of economic development that can be brought to the area. And so we talk about what the benefit is of Frontier being in north central West Virginia. Well, we're kind of here inherently because we support the daily activities of people's lives. 911 relies upon us, and even the wireless companies, one way or another, they run across our networks. So when you think about things that impact your life, and you're kind of sublime to them. When you flip the light switch on, you expect there to be light. You pick up your phone, you expect it to work, and these things are crucial to us conducting our daily lives. One of the interesting things about my company is that when the Verizon business model was much different than ours. C&P used to have a general manager located right here in Fairmont, West Virginia. If you go to the museum at our building on Monroe Street, which is open on Thursdays, you can go back and you can see phone booths dating back to the early 1920s. And you can walk upstairs and you can see technology now that would just completely blow your mind. And the people that I've taken through the central office there in Fairmont and Morgantown and Clarksburg, they're always amazed at what it actually takes for telecommunications to work. It takes a lot of skilled people, and we do have a lot of very professional, very well-trained employees in north central West Virginia. And if everywhere else in the state of West Virginia, there's no area growing like north central West Virginia. It's evident in my P&L statement. It's evident by the fact that the area president for West Virginia, Ohio, his office is in Charleston, West Virginia, but he's already been in north central West Virginia 4 times, and he's only been here since October. So he understands what's happening up here, and he understands where we need to make investments. Because the future of West Virginia, in my opinion, it relies heavily on what we do. And to hear some of the panelists talk about, what was it, co-opetition? I've never heard that before, but I think that is not only an effective way to work together, but I think it shows the true spirit of what's happening in North Central West Virginia. When you bring all these three chambers together and everybody in this room, we understand that rising tides lift all boats. We're all committed to the future success, and I think all of us, inherently knows that how we succeed in North Central West Virginia will change the course and set the course for the future of West Virginia. Politically, that may not be popular in some ranks because people represent different parts of the state, but the reality is the greatest opportunities before us are here in North Central West Virginia. And my company, and obviously all of you are showing your commitment to that by being here today, to come together as a community, because you want to see the tide rise and carry all of us with it. That's all I've got.
Okay, the next question, and I'm gonna this time start with you, Joe. Go back the other way. What are the future trends and developments of your business sector over the next 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years? What is the potential for growth? What is the potential for adding new jobs to your businesses? Joe.
That's an excellent question. We talked about the phone company being 100 years old. And DSL Internet was only brought to West Virginia in the past 15 years. That's a very long time in some ranks, and others it's not. But the first generation technology is still out there, still in use by many people, and they're very pleased with it. But as you build a network that can handle any capacity that any organization would need, whether you're talking major data centers, which is obviously something we see a potential for, especially in North Central West Virginia, to a resident wanting 24 meg at their house. There has to be a platform built for that. So you have existing technology, and then you lay down the latest and greatest technology in our ROADM network right next to it. So at some point in time, as you're moving more towards an IP-based network, you are building that out, and you're also taking some of the old network and putting that into the new network. And it's very capital intensive to do that. And we've seen about just what our involvement, Frontier's involvement, has been about $500 million in the past 4.5 years invested in West Virginia. A lot of that in North and West Virginia. So you look at what that's going to do to propagate change. Well, you have to continue to build out that network. You have to continue to invest the capital into it. So as we do that, you're going to see more opportunities for businesses to come online with us and to expand their networks. And as most of you know, when you put a lot of capital into them in the front end, you have to absorb that and pass it along to the consumer in the beginning. But as time goes on, as you amortize that capital expense, you bring it down, and the cost of entry to the market becomes lower. So where in the beginning you may have charged this amount of money for a circuit, as time goes on, the cost of that circuit comes down. So when you talk about, and you hear comments about, well, in Pittsburgh or DC or Columbus, it's only this much. Well, they had someone investing in that network many, many years ago. And the serious investments in the West Virginia network didn't really start occurring until 2010. So as time goes on, we're just going to see the costs come down on these things. And as costs come down, businesses can deviate that across the board and invest in other ways. So you look at 5 years down the road, you're going to see the next generation technologies, the needs in the private sector come through our system, but the system's already built there. So we've already built the system to support it. Now we just need them to come. So we need more people to come back to West Virginia, more businesses to come back to West Virginia and capitalize on the opportunities here locally.
The company that I work for is Global Science and Technology. And for the most part, we are a government contractor, both federal and to the state of West Virginia. Our activity in the state of West Virginia is much smaller. What we do is We support the desktops and the laptops and the networks of all the government agencies. There are 55 counties in West Virginia, and we have at least one contract in every single one of them. And we also have a contract in every single state agency. Now, we don't have all of the contracts in all of the counties, but we have a staff of about 24 people that support 187 separate contracts. Now, this drives our contracts person a little bit crazy, but it's the way business is done in the state of West Virginia. But the bulk of our work is federal. But I guess what I'm trying to get to here is it's government work. And, you know, the government is squeezing their budget across the board. It doesn't make any difference if it's federal or state. But even in light of that, GST is maintaining. We're doing okay. One of the big projects that we have is a project called CLASS, and I already mentioned this, that we're collecting the data from the different weather satellites. And this is big data. I mean, you hear the term big data, and we are definitely in the middle of that. And there's going to be a lot of that kind of work coming down the pike. You know, we're trying to grab a hold of that kind of work. The database that we've built for the NOAA weather data is huge. Now, we throw out numbers. In a couple years, we will have 20 petabytes of data. Now, I don't know how many of you people know what a petabyte is. That's a tough number to get my arms around. It's been described to me that 1 petabyte is equal to approximately 600 billion books. Okay, does that absolutely clarify what a petabyte is? I still have no idea what a petabyte is. It's a bunch of data, okay? And there's all kinds of challenges when you're dealing with that kind of data. You have to come up with the media to store it on. You have to be able to collect this data as it's coming out of this high-speed hose. And then you have to put it in a database in a way that you can retrieve that data. So the scientists and the people that are studying weather and predicting weather, they need to be able to get that data out of that database really quickly and really effectively. That's the challenge that we have. That contract alone has 118 people. Now we have partners, so it's not all GST, but it's a big coordination effort. We hope that program continues in one form or another, and we hope that we are part of that. And we're hoping for more organic growth there as well, because the building of the database just opens up all kinds of opportunities elsewhere. One final thing that we're doing that we hope is really catching hold is a program called Mesonet. And what Mesonet is recognizing that there is a significant amount of data coming from the satellites, and they're actually being captured by our systems. We also see that there are other data that satellites cannot capture, and that's the data that's on the ground. So we've developed a system where we put these sensors on buses and on trucks and taxis and anything that goes on our roads. And we're collecting data like, is it wet? Is it frozen? Is it covered with snow? Is there snow coming out of the air? Things like that. And this data set is augmenting that data that comes from the satellite. The end result is hopefully our models will be able to predict weather better. We've come a long way in predicting weather over the last few years, but there's still a ways to go. And we're hoping that can expand. We have a consortium that includes, I think it's 24 universities across the United States. And at first, it was not a concept that was really accepted by the National Weather Service, but now they're all in, and we expect that program will expand, and that work is going to be done here. The last thing I'll say is my company, GST, is headquartered in Greenbelt, and we're going after all kinds of national contracts. And if we're successful in some of these things, because the nature of our business, so much of the work that we do, it doesn't make any difference where you are, whether you are here or whether you're right in the middle of the city. We can work remote. We have the internet. We're hoping that some of these contracts that we win, we will be able to bring a chunk of that work to West Virginia. Hey, it's cheaper to do business here. And frankly, like I said before, it's more enjoyable to do business here because you're not always fighting with people. Another problem, and this, I promise, this is the last thing I'll say. The government, especially the federal government, they go through cycles. Sometimes they want just a couple of big contracts, so that their contract office only has to go through one vehicle or two vehicles or three vehicles, a small number. And then they go to another cycle where, oh man, they want every little company to have their own contracts, and it goes in a cycle. Well, right now we're in a cycle where they only want a few big contracts. That's not good for a small business, because then you have to go through and be a sub on one of the larger contracts, and then anything you do is taxed. So it's not a comfortable thing. I fully expect that we'll loop back around, and it'll be a lot of small contracts, and that'll be good for a company like ours. But my message to the government is help the small guys. So that's all I got.
Okay, so before I talk about growth, at least as it relates to the FBI here in West Virginia, at least the CJIS facility here, before I talk about that, I'll probably talk a little bit about how we got to where we are today, and it'll make a little more sense when I talk about where I think we're going in the next year or two or longer. So most of you, well, or some of you probably know, the FBI located here 20 plus years ago, and of course that was part of an effort to relocate our fingerprint division, or what used to be called our identification division, from FBI headquarters in Washington. So that was the bigger part of, obviously that's what we did, and we located a few million fingerprint cards and the staff to go with it to come out to West Virginia, and we built this facility out here, and we started doing our identification business. At the time, though, decision was made to roll into that division. We had this small little thing that was kind of the FBI's foray into the unclassified internet world, and we had this website we call LEO, Law Enforcement Online, that we brought with us. We also brought our uniform crime reporting program that we've been doing for at that time 60 plus years. And we brought all those programs and we kind of rolled them up, and that's when CJIS got the name changed from the Identification Division to the Criminal Justice Information Services Division, and we relocated to West Virginia. And that was all well and good. And we continued to grow that business. Then shortly after that, right about that same time is when the Brady Gun Control Act went into effect, and it required firearms checks for individuals wanting to buy firearms. Well, obviously the logical connection there was, well, in order to do background checks on folks, we need to check their criminal histories and their identification and whatever, and so that logically kind of fell into the lap of the CJIS division. So here, what a lot of folks probably recognize now, but at the time for probably a number of years, that all the firearms gun checks that occurred throughout the country today, they go through our facility here in West Virginia. And to be able to provide that, we built and we developed a pretty good core of folks, and we basically operated a call center because that's how it was done. Of course, that's grown and morphed into internet-based, what we call e-checks now, so a lot of that stuff is being done over the web, and that continues to grow. But those are primarily the businesses that most folks associate with CJIS today. Some of the things that have occurred in the last couple of years, and that I see areas of potential growth in the next few years. One of the things that occurred here in the past couple of years was the realization that the CGIS facility here, we got pretty good at running call centers because of the NICS program. And a couple of years ago, when we had some of the budget issues, and they were looking at ways to leverage some of the economies of scale type thing you hear people talking about, someone had the idea, well, maybe we could just create a big call center there in West Virginia and let them handle all the incoming calls that would otherwise be handled disparately in the 56 field offices that we have. So with that came the idea that we would have this public access line, or this 1-800 call center. And so we stood that up. We've been running that for about 2 years now, and we've been very successful in doing that. And obviously that's grown now to the point where we are looking at leveraging that call center capability to where it will be the location where all tips, whether they be online tips, telephone tips, whatever, will go through that center there. And so we're going to continue to grow that. We've, matter of fact, we've staffed a couple hundred folks for that over the last 2 years. And we'll be, as we grow that capability, we're looking to staff that and increase that. Then that has, one of the things shortly after we stood that up, we had the unfortunate events in Boston occur with the Boston Marathon bombing. It was literally within hours, if not overnight, the FBI was inundated with video and pictures. I mean, everybody walking around, I bet you everybody in this room has a video camera in their pocket. One of the things that we realized really quickly is we received probably 125,000 pictures that people sent in on our tip line, probably over 25,000 video clips that people sent us with information they thought was important for us to know. We were overwhelmed. What that led to is a realization that the FBI, we have to develop a capability to be able to not only receive video and pictures, but we also have to be able to apply analytics to that. So we are currently involved in leading the effort on behalf of the entire FBI to spearhead what we're calling our end-to-end video. The ability to capture and receive video and images and be able to apply certain technologies to those, whether it be facial recognition or other things. So we'll probably be getting a couple petabytes of storage set aside to be able to do that, but we are starting into that now. That's something that we believe in the next year or two we're going to find ourselves immersed in. And then, of course, just to circle back, we will always be involved in the fingerprint business, as it's called the biometrics business now, because biometrics or identification is no longer just limited to fingerprints, as we all know. When you talk about DNA, when you talk about facial recognition, when you talk about voice, human scent, all these different modalities, as we call them, we are looking at ways to tether those to our next generation identification system that we just delivered in the fall. And we will continue to explore in areas related to those modalities. And of course here this year, when we're able to occupy the new building that we're completing on our facility there in Clarksburg, that collaboration will be co-locating with the Department of Defense in that building. And we are anticipating, we're anxious for the synergy that we'll get from that. And we'll be looking at ways to explore, obviously, our biometrics business, which is, quite frankly, our bread and butter. So that's where we're at.
Norm and Steve have touched on a lot of things that I would have talked about. But like Global Science and Technology, Keylogic is a federal contractor, almost exclusively to the federal government with some commercial work. But trends that we've seen, Norm mentioned shrinking budgets. What does that mean to a government contractor, depending on where the shrinks are being made? Keylogic does a lot of program oversight, and those are areas that generally you cannot eliminate. As a matter of fact, we can help identify where performance can be improved, where you can do more with less. So those types of jobs, program management, project management, performance assurance type jobs, we think will continue to grow. And we are forecasting that. Obviously, we'd like the trend of shrinking budgets for contractors to reverse, but probably not going to hold our breath on some of that. But the larger trend worldwide, how many here have heard of the Internet of Things? Anybody? I mean, that's the next iteration of technology. The Internet of Things takes the internet to a level of non-human interaction. The internet was developed so we could access things. We could get to businesses. We can go on and at any time of day or night, I can buy something from Amazon and have it here in 2 days or less. The Internet of Things is connecting inanimate objects through Wi-Fi, through high bandwidth. And a simple example is I go to bed at night and I set my alarm clock for 6:15. My alarm clock tells my coffee maker to turn my coffee on at 6:10. And if I change my schedule by going into Outlook or whatever on the smartphone, my alarm clock changes, my coffee maker changes. And by the way, my coffee maker ordered more coffee because it knows I'm running out tomorrow. Those things are all doable. We see a little bit of that right now if you've got an iPhone or whatever with Siri, and you can say, Siri, tell me to text someone when I get home. And when you get home, it gives you a reminder. But the Internet of Things was talked about years ago. Sun Computing and Java had something called Ginny, which were Java-enabled devices. But the Internet of Things is possible now. It's a little scary. And the scary part is actually where things like biometrics and what CGIS is doing come in. How many of us want to turn our lives over to inanimate devices? And how much of our information are we willing to have out there? We all want immediate access to that information. And so cybersecurity is a huge market. I mean, you hear it talked about. That is, again, just privacy, security, making sure that my social security number and credit card information doesn't end up in Steve's pocket. Man, probably already has it at the end. So those jobs are growing dramatically. And as Steve mentioned, biometrics is a huge part of it. But you come into the questions, again, of privacy, even with biometrics. How much are we willing to allow the government to have? How much are we willing to allow commercial companies to have? So those jobs continue to grow, and those jobs are here. I am very impressed. I go to events, the perception and reputation of West Virginia, primarily more central West Virginia, in the area of biometrics and digital forensics is extremely high. And again, that's a tribute to the universities here, to what CGIS is doing, what they're doing in conjunction with DoD. So if I had to pick a job position over the next 2 to 5 years, it would be in those areas, cybersecurity and biometrics. Again, we do that. We build it into systems as GST. You have to build the security into the systems, but as the ubiquitous Wi-Fi grows, you're just going to see more and more need for those jobs. So my prediction is those would be the areas to shoot for, and start looking at that now. So.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your very valuable insights today. Very interesting. I think I'm excited to see what the next few years are going to hold, and I personally look forward to working with you on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give these guys a hand.